what is artificial intelligence? If we can look at it, it's essentially a technology that tries to mimic human intelligence, right? So what sets you apart between a computer and a human being? You know, what's the difference between you and a computer? Essentially, is you're able to think about things, you're able to imagine things, you're able to sit in a class and learn, you're able to join this Zoom and learn something new. You're able to also improve how you think about things, how you see the world, how you perceive it. But a computer is essentially just good at enabling you to solve problems. You want to see the other person on the other side of the screen. Well, I have a computer for it. I have a software for it, Zoom. I want to chat with someone, you know, I want to write something to them, something sweet. I want to write something hateful, whatever. I want to have a human expression to someone else. I write a text. So, or I'll give them a call, right? So we have the phone for it, we have a message for it, we have a software for it, WhatsApp, it's there, right? So essentially, in this technology, we now try to look at the computers and say, hey, how about we come up with a computer or a software or a technology that essentially can just do some tasks that we do, but more intelligent. No, more intelligent than us. So that's when this idea of artificial intelligence comes about. We're trying to make computers to think about information and data that they have and process it. We're trying to make the computer learn from, you know, the difference between a few things, one or two things, then adapt. Then we're also trying to make computers improve from their learning. We're trying to make computers to understand and see, okay, we moved from 80%, now we want to go to 90%, right? So essentially, if we were to put it in a classroom, the same way we go to class and we teach kids, we introduce them to A, B, C, and D, we show them different images of an apple, we show them images of people, human beings, and animals. That's a, that's similar to the experience we're trying to give a machine here, a computer here, right? So we take them through class and we teach them as a kid. We train them on ABCD through data. So we show them this A means apple, this B means boy, right? Then we give them a test, the same way we do to a kid in class. So we introduce the same thing. Let's say we put an A and we say, what is this? Then it has to fill by itself to identify what does A represent? What does B represent? Then we also have to check and see if the computer is able to pass this test or fail this test. So this is, if we break it down, this essentially is not as magical as we put it out. Certainly are the results. The results are magical to us because the technology keeps on surprising with how we are able to, the computer is able to learn. But certainly it's not that magical. We're essentially just taking a computer to class, right? So what is not AI? Because we have all these ideas of what AI is and what AI is not, right? So what do we mistake AI to be? The first one that you probably heard is that, oh, you know, robots will do everything, or, you know, AI will be able to do everything. You know, I'll sleep, it will wake me up. If I'm about to get hit by a car, it will probably tell me, you know, it will tell me the levels of laziness that is in me when I try to wake up in the morning. But AI will not do everything for you. You still need human beings. So if you are dreaming of having a robot and zero human interaction at some point in your life, and you wouldn't want to interact with human beings and only having artificial intelligence systems around you, well, I'm sorry to break it down to you, that's probably not going to happen. You still need humans in a lot of processes. I mean, a good question for you would be, currently, would you trust, uh, if you are going for surgery, would you trust an artificially intelligent doctor, or would you trust a medical doctor who has done the same thing for 10 to 15 years, right? There's something that they have that the AI probably does not, and there's something that the AI has that the doctor does not. So that means that both of them will probably need each other. They will complement each other, right? So you're not taking human beings out of the equation. So that means if you're not taking human beings out of the equation, you will need other people. So AI will not do everything for you. So that is not AI. That is probably your dreams. Then the second thing is, you know, AI is going to be as, a generalist as human beings are. So essentially, we're thinking of AI is going to be like us human beings, to be able to do all that to a certain human level. Well, it's desirable to have made a computer that is, at the same level of intelligence. But the fact that we are the ones who are making that system already makes us more intelligent, right? You're still the creator of, of that type of AI. So it is essentially very hard to to create an AI that is close to a human being. It is very hard. And remember when I gave the example yesterday where I said when we're having a conversation in a bar or when we're just lounging together or even at the office and I say, hey, the cold in Canairo is brutal. Then there's another person replies like, yeah, sure, Nairobi is pretty cold, right? Those are two things. Canairo and Nairobi mean the same thing because for us human beings, we probably get it's a lingo, it's a language between us. We've created that lingo among us, right? A computer might know Nairobi, an AI might know Nairobi, but it may not know Canairo. It really might not, right? And how many of those examples do we have? Those nuances do we have? And that is only in speech. um, Sometimes in action, like if I do something that a sarcastic act to another human being, a machine might struggle getting that context. So AI is not probably not going to be as generalist as we think. It might not open doors, cook, do everything, or become a wife or become a husband, right? It might not. It might be good at some things and be very good at some things, probably do one thing very good more than human beings, but it might not get to a level where it is very good at every general thing. The third one is, and this one is probably spoken out of hubris by people who are already in fields of STEM, science, technology, and medical and science fields, where someone will say, AI is just repackaged statistics. It's just statistics that, is just statistics with lots of data and lots of power, computing power. But AI is exactly not that. It surpasses that to some degree. We're trying to make a technology that mimics human activities and human intelligence, right? So it will not be the usual software that we make because um, we're trying to make a computer that is able to sometimes learn sentiments, whether a statement is good or bad. We're trying to make a computer that is able to process billions of thoughts and be able to give you a reply. A good example is when you go to Google Translate and type in French or English, then translate it, right? That's at the back of whatever is happening behind it's way more than our usual statistics that we do. We'll just predict this, or this is what is going to happen. It is way more than that, right? So we cannot just place it as, it's just a repackaged statistics. So let's just think of where this technology is coming from, because it's really popular right now, and some of us think it's something that popped out in 2010 or in 2018, but this has been a pretty old technology. It has been with us since 1956. So the guys who started it, the first person who probably is named the father of AI. The reason why he's named the father of AI is because he's the one who coined the term of artificial intelligence. He's the one who, in 1956, they came together as a group of computer scientists, and they drummed up ideas on how can we make how can we come up with computers that are close to human intelligence, or they're at the same level of human intelligence. How can we coin an artificial intelligence of our own kind, of our own human being kind? Like, how can we make a computer just reason and perceive the same way and solve problems the same way a human being would? So John McCarthy was the first individual that really pushed for this. He came up with a programming language called Lisp, and his idea of AI was essentially around robots being able to make, lifelike human being structural robots that will try to mimic human intelligence, like act like us, speak like us. And that's why, for the most part, most images that you see of AI or a representation, even in posters, is probably a robot somewhere. And I won't be surprised if a majority of us would think that AI is only robots, right? So the second individual that is also someone who's very significant in this technology is Alan Turing. So his work has been hidden because he used to work a bit for the military during that time. So he came up with something that is very essential in AI. He came up with what we call a Turing test, which is a test given to computers to see just how good they are, if they've gotten at a human level. So since 1950s up to 2021, we still do not have any AI that has passed the Turing test. So that's why when I see people you know, getting all excited or having lots of fears and saying, "Oh no, AI is probably going to take over." Well, guess what? Since 1956, AI has not been able to pass the Turing test. And the Turing test is a very simple test. Is when you when you get a computer to do an activity and you get a human being to do an activity, and you introduce human beings who will come and assess to know if these two tasks which task has been done by a computer and which one by a human being. If a human being can still easily be able to pick out this is work done by a computer as opposed to a human being, it has failed the Turing test, right? Such a very simple test that, as much as we have built very complex artificial intelligence systems, it still fails a very simple human test, right? So right about that, after Alan Turing created this technology has been very silent. It has probably mostly been hidden in labs. It has mostly been kept in universities as research. And right about until a professor called Geoffrey Hinton picked it up. And what he was able to do is he brought up a new idea of, if we want to really create an artificially intelligent system, we ought to look at what represents intelligence in human beings. And that is essentially the brain. Like that, the brain is what represents intelligence for human beings. It allows us to reason, allows us to perceive, allows us to learn and to imagine and to think and to process, right? And to solve problems out of all that. So he tried to study the brain and how we make decisions. And our brain essentially has neurons, which allow us to, you know, probably differentiate between one or two or three things. That's one. And it does way much more. I mean, there's so many things. You wake up in the morning and you want to know if you're going to wear a green or blue suit, to a level in which you have to solve a very huge problem when you're at work or when you're studying for an exam or you're sitting for an exam, right? So he tried to come up with a way in which computers will mimic human brains. And he came up with what we call deep learning, which we're going to look at later on. And that has been widely adopted because it took so many details the same way you would analyze and study something and come up with a conclusion on whatever you're looking out for. So he also took close to 40 years until we recognized his work, right? So his work has made AI popular right now for the most part, because out of his breakthroughs, we've been able to try to take AI a bit more seriously. So that's why we call him the godfather of AI. So why is AI booming right now? Why are we hearing all this talk? You remember, if you're old enough and you're in the chat, you remember the times when internet was coming out, right? So, it was a whole jazz that we had, like, what's going on? What is the internet? Same way, it's like, what is AI and why are we so interested in it? And why are companies like Google and all these big companies trying to run and do something about it? So, well, and why, let's also ask another question, is why since 1956 to date are we starting to see the benefits of this technology, right? So there are three reasons why AI as the technology is booming right now. And the first one is increasing data. Just imagine for a second, how much data do you produce per person? You have your phone, you're sending out a text, that's data you're generating. You're taking a screenshot, that's data. You're going to Instagram, that's data. You are joining this Zoom, that's data. You are looking at, you're probably watching TV, that's data, right? All that is you producing data. And that's just you as an individual. So you use your phone, you're generating data. You use your laptop, you're generating data. So those are just two devices that you have on a personal level. Now imagine how much data are we producing from a car? How much data are we producing from um, TV? How much data are we producing from all this together, all of our data together combined to when you go to the office and you have a computer there, you have a desktop there sitting there. You have an IT department that is busy telling you, hey, upload things, please upload, use this drive, upload things here. All that, all that is this data being generated. So you probably produce, the world is producing 2.5 billion. That's data per day, yeah? And that's why we usually say the world has generated so much data than we ever existed in a period of 2 to 3 years. Anytime between now and the last 3 years, you produce so much data than the previous years. That's how much you're producing data, right? Then the second thing is we have decrease in cost, computation cost. Now we have phones. Initially, people having and owning a phone used to be a luxury. From Nokia 3310 to Motorola, from all those times up to now, even owning a laptop is will show you that the cost has gone down. We came from having one computer in the house to even our kids in high school and primary owning devices. So the cost of being able to own something that is collecting data, which is essentially your phone, your laptop, the more you interact, the more you generate data, has also reduced. So that cost has reduced. Then the third one is our ability for us to keep all this information that we are producing in sophisticated places. Remember when you back up your data and it goes to something called the cloud, right? That essentially is a data storage. It's essentially you're storing your information in someone else's computer. So if you think you're pushing it to the cloud, I'm sorry, you're just pushing it to someone else's computer. So all this jazz that we have, like AI is booming, is essentially just because of these three things. And why is it that in increasing data and the cost of us buying phones and computers has gone down, and in sudden increase in data storage, we have a lot of AI coming up? The reason why we do that is because AI, in trying to learn and in trying to mimic human beings, we're taking it to class, and we're taking it to class with what? With data. It has to learn from data in order for it to mimic or to come up with any sort of intelligence.